One scorching morning, a young diner worker in Houston is busy serving customers when he suddenly notices an old woman sweeping the sidewalk, her face flushed from the unbearable heat. Without hesitation, he pulls a couple of crumpled bills from his pocket, buys a large cup of ice water, and steps out into the blazing sun. He walks straight to the woman and places the cup in her trembling hands, a small act of kindness from a man who has almost nothing. But what he doesn't know is that the woman is a powerful CEO, and the way she chooses to repay his kindness will bring him to tears. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow's story might just change how you see kindness forever. The Houston heat was already brutal at 6:30 in the morning, the kind of oppressive humidity that made breathing feel like work. Marcus Thompson had been on his feet at the diner for half an hour, the breakfast rush just beginning to hit. Marcus Thompson was 28 years old, though the stress of his life made him look older. He'd been working at Patricia's diner for 3 years, ever since his mother died and left him responsible for his younger sister Diana. Before the diner, he'd cobbled together whatever work he could find. Warehouse jobs, retail, manual labor, nothing that paid well, nothing with benefits, nothing that felt like it could lead anywhere. The diner was more of the same, but at least Patricia was decent. She paid on time, didn't harass her staff, and occasionally let them take home leftover food. In Marcus's world, that counted as a good job. Coffee, eggs over easy, pancakes no butter, hash browns, extra crispy. The orders blurred together. Different faces but the same needs, everyone desperate for caffeine before facing another scorching Texas summer day. Marcus, 2 coffees, black, table 6. Patricia called from behind the counter. Got it, Marcus replied, his hands moving on autopilot. 3 years he'd been doing this, and his body knew the rhythm even when his mind wandered. Through the large front windows of the diner, something caught his eye. An older white woman, probably in her 60s, was sweeping the sidewalk outside. Marcus had noticed her yesterday for the first time, moving slowly in the oppressive heat, her worn clothes already soaked with sweat. What struck Marcus now was how much worse she looked today. The heat was getting to her. He could see her leaning heavily on her broom, her face flushed red, her movements labored. She looked like she might collapse. A flicker of worry cut through Marcus's focus. He'd seen people push themselves past their limits before, people who didn't have the luxury to rest. Something about the way she swayed on her feet reminded him of his mother after a long double shift, too proud to sit down even when her legs trembled. He glanced at the clock. His break wasn't for another hour, but this couldn't wait. Patricia, I need 5 minutes, he called out. Patricia looked up, saw him staring out the window, and followed his gaze. Her expression softened. Go, make it quick. Marcus grabbed a large cup and filled it with iced water, added extra ice and 2 lemon wedges. He hesitated for just a second. The drink would come out of his own pocket, and money was already tighter than ever, but he paid for it anyway. Some things, he figured, were worth more than a couple of dollars. He didn't think about it again, he just moved. The wall of heat hit him the moment he stepped outside, but he barely noticed. The woman was leaning on her broom now, clearly struggling. Excuse me, ma'am, Marcus said gently, approaching her. She looked up, startled. Her blue eyes were tired but kind, her weathered face showing surprise that anyone had noticed her. Most people walked right past, treating her like part of the scenery. I thought you might need this, Marcus said, extending the cup of water. It's dangerous out here today. Has to be 95 already, and it's not even 7 o'clock. The woman stared at him, then at the water, then back at him. Something flickered in her expression, an emotion he couldn't quite read. She took the cup slowly, her hands rough and calloused. Thank you, sweetheart, she said, her voice raspy. You didn't have to do this. This is very kind of you. Marcus shrugged, offering a small smile. Just seemed like the right thing to do. Can't have you getting heat stroke out here. Please find some shade soon, okay? She nodded, taking a long drink. The relief on her face was immediate. This really hits the spot. What's your name, young man? Marcus. Marcus Thompson. Rebecca, she replied, extending her free hand. Rebecca Whitmore. It's nice to meet someone who still sees people, Marcus. That's rare these days. Nice to meet you too, Miss Whitmore. Marcus heard Patricia calling his name from inside. I've got to get back to work, but you take care of yourself, okay? Thank you, Marcus, Rebecca said, and there was something in her eyes, something that suggested she was filing this moment away, remembering it. She took a sip and smiled, the lines around her eyes softening. You've got a good heart, she murmured. Marcus chuckled awkwardly. My mom would have said the same. Then she raised you right, the woman replied simply. Marcus nodded and hurried back inside, retying his apron as he returned to the chaos of the breakfast rush. But as he wiped the counter and poured drinks for customers, his mind kept drifting back to the woman outside, the tremor in her hands, the exhaustion in her eyes, the quiet dignity in the way she'd sipped that cold lemon water like it was a gift. Something about her reminded him of his mother. His mother, Sarah Thompson, had worked as a housekeeper her entire adult life, cleaning other people's homes while their own apartment fell apart around them. She'd worked herself to death, literally. At 54, her body just gave out, exhausted from decades of physical labor and stress. Before she died, she'd made Marcus promise to take care of Diana, to make sure his baby sister got the education she never had, the opportunities that had never come their way. Diana's smart, Marcus, his mother had whispered from her hospital bed, her voice weak. Smarter than both of us. Get her through school. Promise me. I promise, Mama, Marcus had said, holding her hand. I'll take care of her, I swear. He kept that promise, but it was hard. Diana was 23 now, working on her degree at Houston Community College while working part-time at a grocery store. Between them, they barely made enough to cover rent on their cramped apartment, utilities, food, and her tuition. There was never anything left over, no savings, no cushion, no room for error. Marcus worked 50 to 60 hours a week at the diner when he could get the shifts. He'd wake at 4:45 to catch the early bus downtown, work until 3 or 4 in the afternoon, then come home to collapse. Sometimes he picked up evening shifts at a warehouse, loading trucks until midnight, then doing it all again the next day. He was exhausted all the time. His body ached constantly, his feet hurt, his back hurt, his hands were calloused and rough. He was 28 but felt 50. But Diana was in school, getting her degree, building towards something better. That's what mattered. That's what kept Marcus going through the endless days of serving coffee to people who rarely bothered to learn his name. People who looked through him like he was invisible. The invisibility was the worst part. Not the low pay, or the hard work, or the exhaustion, but the way people treated service workers like they weren't fully human, like they were furniture that happened to bring food. Most customers never made eye contact. They barked orders without saying please or thank you. They complained about everything. They left terrible tips or no tips at all. They were rude to his face because they could be, because what was Marcus going to do about it? He needed this job. So he smiled and said yes ma'am, and right away sir, and swallowed his pride every single day. He carried the weight of being invisible, being dismissed, being treated as less than. That's why he'd noticed Rebecca sweeping the sidewalk, because Marcus knew what it felt like to be invisible. He knew what it meant to work hard at something people considered beneath notice. He saw her because he knew what it was like not to be seen. His mother had taught him that. We might not have much, baby, she used to say, but we always have kindness. That costs nothing, and it's worth everything. You treat people right, Marcus, especially people who can't do anything for you. That's when kindness means the most. So when he saw Rebecca struggling in the heat, he didn't calculate what he might gain. He didn't think about the $2. He just saw another human being who needed help, and he helped. Simple as that. Except it wasn't simple at all. Because Rebecca Whitmore wasn't what she appeared to be, and that cup of water was about to open doors Marcus didn't even know existed. The rest of Marcus's shift passed in the usual blur. The lunch rush hit around 11:30, and for the next 2 hours, Marcus barely had time to breathe. Orders, payments, complaints, more orders. His feet ached, his back screamed, and sweat soaked through his uniform, despite the struggling air conditioning. Around 2 o'clock, things finally slowed down. Marcus leaned against the counter, catching his breath, when Patricia approached him. "That was a nice thing you did this morning," she said. "With that lady outside." Marcus shrugged. "Just water, no big deal." "It's a big deal to her, I bet," Patricia said. "Most people wouldn't have noticed, wouldn't have cared if they did. You've got a good heart, Marcus. Your mama raised you right." Marcus felt his throat tighten at the mention of his mother. 3 years gone, and it still hurt like yesterday. "She did her best. She did better than best," Patricia said firmly. "You turned out good, despite everything. That's not an accident." At 3 o'clock, Marcus's shift finally ended. He clocked out, grabbed his worn backpack from his locker, and stepped back out into the brutal afternoon heat. The bus home wouldn't come for another 10 minutes, so he stood in the shade of the diner's awning, trying not to melt into the sidewalk. Rebecca was still there, still working. She'd moved down the block but was still sweeping, still methodical despite the heat. Marcus watched her for a moment, concerned. How long was she planning to stay out here? As if sensing his gaze, Rebecca looked up and waved. Marcus waved back. Something told him he'd see her again tomorrow. Something told him this wasn't over. He had no idea how right he was. The apartment Marcus and Diana shared was on the third floor of a run-down building in their old neighborhood. The elevator hadn't worked in 2 years, so Marcus climbed the stairs, each step a reminder of how tired he was. Inside, Diana was at their small kitchen table, textbooks spread everywhere, her laptop open, face buried in notes. She looked up when Marcus walked in. "Hey," she said, pushing her glasses up her nose. She had their mother's eyes, warm, perceptive. "How was work?" "Not bad," Marcus said lightly, forcing a grin as he hung his keys by the door. "Set a new record for how fast I can flip pancakes. Pretty sure I impressed the toaster too." Diana smiled, but her eyes lingered on him. His shirt was damp from the heat, his smile a little too practiced. "You sure you're okay?" she asked softly. "I'm great," Marcus said, heading straight for the fridge. "Got a night off, which means I'm officially living the dream. Pizza, bad TV, maybe even sleep before midnight. Don't be jealous." "Jealous isn't the word I'd use," Diana murmured, watching him take a long drink of water. He changed the subject before she could press further. "How's studying? You still terrorizing your professors?" "Midterms next week," Diana sighed. "I'm trying not to panic. You'll be fine," Marcus said, pointing at her with mock authority. "You've got this. You always do." She smiled faintly, but her brow furrowed. "Marcus, we're short on rent. About 150. I'm picking up extra shifts, but hey, Marcus cut in, flashing his easy grin again. "Relax, I'll take care of it. Maybe Patricia's got a few doubles for me. No big deal." "Marcus, nope," he said, shaking his head. "We've been through worse. You focus on your books, that's your full-time job. Let me worry about the boring stuff." "Maybe I should work more hours," Diana said quietly. "It's not fair that you—" "Diana," Marcus interrupted gently, his tone soft but final. "You're not dropping anything. You're gonna graduate. That's the deal. You study for both of us, all right." She blinked hard, then nodded. "Okay," he smiled, tapping her notebook. "Good. Now remind me again what a sociologist actually does, 'cause I still think you made that word up." She laughed, and for a brief moment the heaviness in the room lifted. Later, when she'd gone to bed, Marcus sat alone at the kitchen table. The light from her laptop still glowed faintly, casting long shadows across the cluttered books. He stared at the open pages, the neat notes, the ambition in every line of her handwriting, and felt something tighten in his chest. His mother had always said Diana would go farther than either of them. "She's got the brains, you've got the grit," she told him once. "Between you, you'll make it." He smiled faintly at the memory, then glanced toward the window. Somewhere out there, the woman he'd helped that morning was probably asleep, the cup of lemon water long forgotten, but her words still echoed in his mind. "This means more than you know." He didn't understand what she meant, not yet, but by tomorrow, he would. The next morning arrived with the same relentless heat. Marcus's alarm went off at 4:45, and he dragged himself out of bed, feeling like he'd barely slept. His body ached from yesterday, and today would bring more of the same. But Diana needed him, their rent needed paying, and sitting around feeling sorry for himself wouldn't change anything. He went through his morning routine quietly, not wanting to wake his sister. Coffee, quick breakfast, uniform. He left a note by the coffee maker. "Have a good day, love you, study hard." The bus ride downtown was already hot and crowded, full of other early morning workers, heading to their own exhausting jobs. Marcus stared out the window, watching Houston wake up, and wondered if this was all his life would ever be. Work, exhaustion, struggle, repeat. When he arrived at the diner, Patricia was already there, preparing for the morning rush. "Morning, Marcus," she greeted him. "That lady from yesterday, the one sweeping. She was here earlier, asking about you. Asked what time you started your shift." Marcus felt a small flutter of something in his chest. Curiosity, maybe. "She was here already, about half an hour ago," Patricia said. "She's down the block now. Seems like a nice woman. You made an impression." The morning rush hit hard and fast. Marcus barely had time to think, much less look out the window, but around 10:30, during a brief lull, he glanced outside and saw Rebecca. She was sweeping near the corner, moving even slower than yesterday, if that was possible. The heat was already oppressive, promising another day over 100 degrees. Marcus didn't hesitate. He filled another cup with iced water, extra ice, lemon wedges, and headed outside. "Miss Rebecca," he called out. She turned, and her tired face broke into a genuine smile. "Marcus, good morning to you." Morning, he said, extending the water. Thought you could use this again. It's even hotter today than yesterday. Weather says it might hit 103. Rebecca took the cup, and Marcus noticed her hands were shaking slightly. She was pushing herself too hard in this heat. You're doing this again. Marcus, you're too kind, really. It's just water, Marcus said, feeling a little embarrassed by her gratitude. No big deal. It is a big deal, Rebecca said firmly, taking a long drink. She closed her eyes, savoring the cold water. Most people walk right past me every single day, like I'm invisible, like I'm not even here. But you see me as a person. That matters more than you could possibly know. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't good with compliments or praise. You remind me of my mama, he admitted quietly. She worked hard her whole life, cleaning other people's houses. Nobody ever really noticed her either. She was just the help, invisible. I just think about how I wish someone would have done something nice for her once in a while, shown her she mattered, you know. Rebecca's expression softened with understanding and something deeper, sadness maybe, or recognition. You lost her, didn't you? I can hear it in your voice. Marcus nodded, his throat suddenly tight. 3 years ago, worked herself to death basically. She was only 54. I'm so sorry, Marcus, Rebecca said gently, and her sympathy felt genuine, not performative. That's far too young, but she clearly raised a remarkable son. You honor her memory every time you show kindness to someone the world has forgotten. I hope you know that. Marcus felt tears threatening and blinked them back. He couldn't cry at work, just trying to do right by her. That's all. You're doing more than that, Rebecca said. You're being the kind of person this world desperately needs more of. Before Marcus could respond, he heard Patricia calling his name. The lunch rush was starting. I've got to get back, Marcus said reluctantly. But please, Miss Rebecca, take breaks today. Find shade. This heat is dangerous. I will, Rebecca promised. And Marcus, thank you, truly. Marcus hurried back inside, his mind lingering on their conversation. There was something about Rebecca, something genuine and kind, that made him want to keep talking to her. In a world where most people treated him like he was nothing, she treated him like he mattered. The lunch rush was brutal, 2.5 hours of non-stop orders, demanding customers, and Marcus's feet screaming in protest. But he pushed through like he always did, because what other choice was there? Finally, at 3 o'clock, his shift ended. Marcus clocked out, exhausted and ready to go home. As he was gathering his things from his locker, Patricia approached him with a small neatly folded piece of paper. That lady Rebecca, she gave me this for you, Patricia said, handing it over. Said to make sure you got it. Said it was important. Marcus took the paper, his heart suddenly beating faster. The paper was nice, expensive stationery, not what he'd expect someone sweeping streets to have. He unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was elegant, educated. Marcus, please meet me tomorrow during your lunch break. I have something important to discuss with you, something that could change your life, and your sister's life. I know this sounds mysterious, but I promise you, it's worth your time. Please trust me. Rebecca Whitmore. Marcus read it twice, then a third time. Change your life, your sister's life. How did Rebecca even know about Diana? And what could a street sweeper possibly have to discuss that would change anything? Everything okay? Patricia asked, noticing his expression. I don't know, Marcus said honestly, folding the note. She wants to meet tomorrow, says she has something important to tell me. Patricia studied his face. You should meet her, Marcus. I've got a feeling about this. Sometimes unexpected things turn out to be exactly what we need. Marcus nodded slowly, slipping the note into his pocket. Yeah, I'll meet her. On the bus ride home, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the note. He pulled it out and reread it several times. The expensive paper, the elegant handwriting, the strange promise about changing his life. None of it made sense. When he got home, Diana was in the kitchen making dinner, ramen noodles with an egg. Nothing fancy, but it was what they could afford. Hey, she greeted him. How was work? Weird, Marcus said, pulling out the note and handing it to his sister. Diana read it, her eyebrows climbing toward her hairline. Who's Rebecca Whitmore? And how does she know about me? This woman who sweeps outside the diner, Marcus explained, dropping into a chair. I've been giving her water the past couple days because of the heat. Now she wants to meet with me about something that could change our lives. I don't know what to make of it. Diana set the note down, concern clear on her face. Marcus, this sounds strange. What does she mean, change our lives? How does she know I exist? This could be some kind of scam or something. You need to be careful. I know, Marcus said, but Diana, what if it's legitimate? What if this could actually help us? We're drowning here, rent's due in 4 days and we're still short. Maybe this is that something coming through that I talked about. Diana bit her lip, worry written all over her face. Or maybe it's too good to be true. Those things usually are, especially for people like us. Life doesn't just hand you opportunities out of nowhere, Marcus. You know that. I do know that, Marcus agreed. But I also know I gave her water because it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted anything from her, and she's been nothing but kind to me. Maybe I should at least hear what she has to say. Diana sighed, running her hand through her hair in that familiar gesture of stress. Okay, but promise me you'll be careful. If anything feels wrong, if she asks you for money, or tries to get you involved in something shady, you walk away immediately. Promise me. I promise, Marcus said, reaching over to squeeze his sister's hand. I'm not going to do anything stupid, but I have to at least find out what this is about. That night, Marcus lay in bed staring at Rebecca's note by the light of his phone. The paper was definitely expensive, high quality, the kind of thing someone with money would use, not someone sweeping sidewalks for a living. Something didn't add up, but Marcus couldn't figure out what. He thought about the way Rebecca had looked at him, really looked at him, seeing him as a person instead of just a server. He thought about her gratitude for simple water, her words about him honoring his mother's memory. She didn't feel like a scammer, she felt genuine. But Diana was right to be cautious. Life had taught them both that opportunities rarely came without strings attached, especially for people from their neighborhood. Still, what if this was different? What if just once, something good could happen? Marcus folded the note carefully, and set it on his nightstand. Tomorrow, he'd find out, whatever Rebecca wanted to tell him. Whatever this mysterious meeting was about, he'd face it with open eyes and a cautious heart. But deep down, in a place he barely dared to acknowledge, Marcus felt a tiny spark of hope igniting. Maybe, just maybe, something was about to change. Marcus barely slept. Every time he started to drift off, his mind would jerk him awake with another scenario about what Rebecca might want. By the time his alarm went off at 4:45, he felt like he hadn't slept at all. He went through his morning routine on autopilot, his thoughts consumed by the upcoming meeting. Diana was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with her coffee. Couldn't sleep either. Marcus asked, "I'm worried about you," Diana admitted. "About this whole thing. It just feels too strange, too convenient." "I know," Marcus said, pouring his own coffee, "but I have to find out what this is about. I'll be careful, I promise." "Call me right after," Diana insisted. "As soon as the meeting's over. I don't care if you're at work, just call me, so I know you're okay." "I will," Marcus promised, kissing the top of her head. "Don't worry so much, I'm smarter than I look." The bus ride to work felt longer than usual. Marcus's leg bounced nervously, his fingers drumming against his thigh. He kept checking his pocket to make sure the note was still there, as if it might somehow disappear, and prove this whole thing was just his imagination. When he arrived at the diner, Patricia gave him an encouraging smile. "Big day," she said simply. "Yeah," Marcus replied, tying on his apron with trembling fingers. The morning passed in its usual chaotic rhythm, but Marcus couldn't focus. He messed up 2 orders, forgot to refill coffee cups, and generally performed like it was his first day on the job. Patricia covered for him, sending him understanding looks. Around 11 o'clock, Marcus glanced out the window and froze. Rebecca was there, but she looked completely different. Gone were the worn work clothes and tired posture. Instead, she wore an elegant cream-colored linen blouse and tailored navy slacks. Her gray hair was styled professionally, swept back in a sophisticated way. She wore understated gold jewelry, a watch that looked expensive even from a distance, and she carried a leather handbag that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. She looked like she belonged in the business district, not sweeping sidewalks. She caught his eye through the window, and gestured to the bench outside, the one in the shade of the diner's awning. Marcus's heart pounded. What the hell was going on? "Go ahead," Patricia said, appearing at his elbow. "Take as long as you need." Marcus untied his apron with shaking hands and walked outside. The heat hit him immediately, but he barely noticed. His entire focus was on Rebecca, who stood as he approached, her expression warm but serious. "Marcus, thank you for meeting me," she said. "Please, sit down. We need to talk, and I know what I'm about to tell you is going to sound incredible, possibly unbelievable, but I need you to hear me out completely before you react." Can you do that for me? Marcus sat down slowly, his mind racing. Okay. Rebecca took a seat beside him, folding her hands in her lap. She took a breath, as if steadying herself. My full name is Rebecca Catherine Whitmore. I'm not a street sweeper, Marcus. I'm a venture capitalist and real estate investor. I've been in business for over 30 years, building commercial properties, investing in startups, managing a portfolio. I've been quite successful over the years. My company is worth several $1,000,000. Marcus stared at her, unable to process what she was saying. The words didn't make sense, they couldn't be real. But you're out here sweeping streets. I've seen you, for the past 2 days. I know how it looks, Rebecca said gently. Let me explain. Marcus, I do this sometimes, once or twice a year. I take a week or two and I step away from my regular life. I dress down, do simple work like sweeping sidewalks, and I observe. I watch how people treat each other when they think nobody important is watching. It tells me everything I need to know about character, about who people truly are when there's nothing to gain from kindness. Marcus felt his stomach drop, a cold feeling washing over him despite the heat. You were testing people. Testing me? Yes, Rebecca admitted, and Marcus saw genuine apology in her eyes. But it's more than just a test, Marcus. Please understand, I've seen so much in my decades in business. I've watched people step over those they consider beneath them without a second thought. I've seen kindness become transactional, only given when something can be gained in return. I've watched wealth corrupt good people and poverty harden kind hearts. I wanted to see if there were still people out there who gave kindness freely, who saw others as human beings worthy of dignity regardless of their station in life. Marcus shook his head, still trying to catch up, feeling like the ground beneath him was shifting. I just gave you water. That's all. I don't understand what this has to do with anything. That's everything, Rebecca said firmly, her voice passionate now. Marcus, you didn't have to do that. You're struggling financially, I could see that. Every dollar matters to you and your sister. But you spent your money on a stranger, someone you thought couldn't do anything for you in return. You did it because it was right, because you saw me as a human being who needed help. And you did it twice, without hesitation, without expecting anything back. Do you know how rare that is? She leaned forward slightly. I've been coming to this neighborhood for 5 days now, Marcus. I've been on these streets for hours each day. Do you know how many people have offered me even a kind word? 8. Do you know how many offered me something to drink or eat? You, just you. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Marcus felt overwhelmed, emotions swirling inside him. Confusion, anger at being tested, hope he didn't dare acknowledge. Why does it matter? Rebecca reached into her handbag and pulled out a business card, handing it to Marcus. It was elegant cardstock with embossed lettering, Rebecca Catherine Whitmore, CEO, Whitmore Ventures, LLC. An address in the business district downtown. A phone number. I want to offer you a job, Marcus. Rebecca said simply. A real opportunity to use your talents, your compassion, your work ethic, your ability to see people for who they really are. I need people like you in my organization. People who genuinely care about others, not just profit margins and bottom lines. People with integrity. Marcus stared at the card, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold it. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like him. But I don't know anything about business. I'm just a server at a diner. I barely finished high school because I had to start working full-time. I don't have any experience with ventures or real estate or any of that. I wouldn't even know where to start. You have the most important qualification, Rebecca said, her voice gentle but firm. You have character, you have empathy, you have a good heart and a strong work ethic. You treat people with dignity and respect regardless of who they are. Everything else can be taught, Marcus. I can teach you about business, about real estate, about finance. But those core qualities, those are innate. Either you have them or you don't, and you have them in abundance. Marcus looked up at her, tears blurring his vision. Why me? There have to be thousands of people more qualified than me. People with degrees and experience and connections. Why would you choose someone like me? Rebecca's expression softened with compassion. Because I've been watching how you work, Marcus. Not just these past few days on the street, but for the past week I've been coming to this diner, sitting in different spots, observing. I've seen how you treat every single customer with respect, even when they're rude to you. Even when they don't tip or they complain or they treat you like you're invisible. I've seen you stay late to help your coworkers without being asked. I've seen the way you carry yourself with dignity despite obviously struggling. She paused, her voice becoming softer, and I made some discreet inquiries. I know you take care of your younger sister, that you've sacrificed your own education and opportunities so she can have hers. That takes a kind of strength and selflessness that's incredibly rare. You're exactly the kind of person I want in my organization. Marcus couldn't speak, his throat was too tight, emotions threatening to overwhelm him completely. This couldn't be real, but Rebecca's eyes were sincere, her words genuine. She believed what she was saying. I don't know what to say, he finally whispered. You don't have to decide right now, Rebecca said kindly. But I'd like you to come to my office, today if possible. Meet my team, see what we do, get a feel for whether this might be right for you. I'll be completely transparent about everything. The position, the salary, the expectations, all of it, and then you can make an informed decision. What do you say? Can you spare a few hours this afternoon? Marcus's mind was spinning. This felt surreal, like something out of a movie or a dream. I have to finish my shift, Patricia needs me. I'll take care of that, Rebecca said, standing up gracefully. Let me talk to Patricia. I think she'll understand. Before Marcus could respond, Rebecca was walking into the diner. Through the window, Marcus watched her approach Patricia. Whatever she said, Patricia's eyes went wide, and she glanced at Marcus through the window with an expression of shock and something that looked like excitement. Then she was nodding enthusiastically, smiling, gesturing for Rebecca to continue. Jennifer and the other staff members were staring, whispering to each other. Several customers had noticed the commotion. Everyone seemed to recognize Rebecca, seemed to understand that something significant was happening. Everyone except Marcus had known who she really was. Rebecca came back out, looking satisfied. All set, Patricia says you should absolutely go, that you deserve something good for once. Her exact words. So Marcus Thompson, are you ready to see what your future could look like? Marcus stood on shaky legs. His entire world was tilting, nothing making sense anymore. But beneath the confusion and fear, there was something else growing. Hope. Real, tangible hope for the first time in years. Okay, he said, his voice barely audible. Let's go. Rebecca smiled, warm and genuine. Excellent. My car is just down the street. The car was exactly what Marcus should have expected now that he knew the truth. A sleek black luxury sedan, probably worth more than Marcus would make in 10 years at the diner. The leather interior was cool from the air conditioning, softer and more comfortable than any furniture Marcus had ever sat on. As Rebecca drove them downtown, weaving through Houston traffic with practiced ease, she talked about her company, about the work they did, about the opportunities that could be available to Marcus. But Marcus could barely focus on her words. His mind was too busy spinning, trying to process the impossibility of what was happening. They passed from his neighborhood into the business district, and the transition was stark and immediate. Gleaming skyscrapers replaced run-down buildings. Well-dressed professionals replaced struggling families. Luxury cars replaced old buses. This was a different world, one Marcus had only ever seen from bus windows, never imagined he might actually enter. When Rebecca pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a tall glass building, Marcus felt his breath catch. The building was stunning, all modern architecture, and gleaming windows reflecting the bright Texas sky. Rebecca had her own reserved spot near the elevator, her name on a sign. This is us, Rebecca said, leading Marcus to the elevator. We have the top 3 floors. The elevator was smooth and silent as it carried them up. Marcus watched the numbers climb with increasing anxiety. 22, 23, 24. The doors opened directly into a sleek reception area with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a breathtaking view of downtown Houston. The space was modern and elegant, all clean lines, expensive furniture, and carefully chosen art pieces. Welcome to Whitmore Ventures, Rebecca said, and there was obvious pride in her voice. A young professional woman at the reception desk looked up and smiled warmly. Good afternoon, Miss Whitmore. Good afternoon, Jennifer. Rebecca replied. This is Marcus Thompson. He's considering joining our team. Jennifer's smile widened. Welcome, Mr. Thompson. It's nice to meet you. Marcus managed a nod, too overwhelmed to speak. Everything was so polished, so professional. He felt completely out of place in his diner uniform, his worn shoes, his calloused hands. Rebecca guided him through glass doors with the company name etched elegantly on them into the main office space. People worked at sleek modern desks, phones rang quietly, computers hummed. There was an energy and purpose to everything that felt both exciting and terrifying. "Let me give you a tour," Rebecca said. She introduced him to various people as they walked. Everyone was dressed professionally in business attire. Everyone looked educated and confident. Everyone seemed to belong in this world of success and opportunity. They all had degrees, probably advanced degrees, came from good families with connections and resources. Marcus shook hands and tried to smile, but inside he felt like a fraud. What was he doing here? He was a kid from the Third Ward who served coffee for a living. He didn't belong in this world. Each person they met looked him up and down, taking in his uniform, his appearance, his obvious discomfort. Some with curiosity, others with barely concealed skepticism, a few with what might have been pity or confusion. Marcus could see the questions in their eyes. Why him? What made him so special? What could a diner server possibly contribute here? Finally, Rebecca led him to a large corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows offering an incredible view of the city. She closed the door behind them, gesturing for Marcus to sit in one of the comfortable leather chairs facing her desk. Marcus sank into the chair, feeling small in the expansive office. This was Rebecca's domain, where she made decisions that affected millions of dollars, where she wielded real power and influence. Rebecca sat in her executive chair, her expression warm and understanding. "I know this is overwhelming, Marcus. Believe me, I understand. This is a completely different world from what you know, but I need you to understand something important." She leaned forward on her desk. "You're here because I see potential in you that's rare and precious. You care about people in a way that's become increasingly rare in the business world, especially at higher levels. You want to make things better, even when it's hard, even when there's no reward. That's exactly what I need. That's what this company needs to get back to its roots." Marcus looked down at his hands, rough and calloused from years of hard work. "But I don't know how to do any of this. I don't know how to be whatever you're offering me to be. I don't even understand half of what people out there probably do every day. I'd be starting from nothing, and everyone here would know it. They'd all be wondering why I'm here, what gives me the right to be in this space." "That's okay," Rebecca said, her voice patient. "You're not supposed to know everything right away. That's why we have training, mentorship, support systems. I believe in you, Marcus. I wouldn't have brought you here if I didn't. But the real question is, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe you deserve this opportunity?" Marcus felt tears threatening again. He thought about his mother, about all the years she'd worked herself to the bone for so little recognition, dying young and exhausted. He thought about Diana, sitting at their kitchen table every night, studying hard and dreaming of a better future while worrying about how they'd pay for it. He thought about the bills piling up, the constant stress, the feeling of being trapped in a cycle he couldn't break no matter how hard he worked. And he thought about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this could be real. That maybe he could actually do this. That maybe he could give Diana the life she deserved, the life their mother had wanted for both of them. "I want to try," he said finally, his voice shaking but determined. "I'm scared, I'm terrified, actually. But I want to try. For me and for my sister, we need this. We need something to change, because what we're doing now isn't sustainable. I can't keep working myself to death, just to stay poor, so yes, I want to try. I have to try." Rebecca's face broke into a warm, genuine smile. She stood and extended her hand across the desk. "That's all I needed to hear, Marcus. That willingness to try, that courage to step into the unknown despite your fear. Welcome to Whitmore Ventures. Let's take this one step at a time, together." Marcus stood on trembling legs and took her hand, her grip firm and confident. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for seeing me, for giving me this chance. I won't let you down. I promise you that." "I know you won't," Rebecca said with confidence. "Welcome aboard, Marcus Thompson. I think you're going to surprise a lot of people, probably including yourself." As they left her office and Rebecca walked him back through the workspace, explaining that her assistant Elizabeth would reach out about start dates and paperwork, Marcus felt the weight of his decision settling in. He had no idea what lay ahead, no idea if he could actually do this, no idea if he was making the biggest mistake of his life or the best decision he'd ever make. But for the first time in years, maybe since his mother died, Marcus felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. Hope, real, tangible, powerful hope that his life could actually be different, that he could be more than just a struggling server watching life pass him by. That maybe, just maybe, kindness could actually be rewarded instead of exploited. On the drive back to the diner to get his things, Marcus pulled out his phone and called Diana. "Well," she answered immediately, her voice tight with anxiety. "What happened?" "Are you okay, Diana?" Marcus said, his voice shaking with emotion. "You're not going to believe this. Rebecca Whitmore is a millionaire venture capitalist. She was testing people, seeing who would show kindness when there was nothing to gain. And she offered me a job, a real job with a real salary. She says I can start in 2 weeks." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Diana's voice came back, shaky with emotion. "Are you serious? Marcus, are you serious right now?" "This is real, I'm serious," Marcus said, his own voice breaking. "This is real, Diana, this is actually happening. We're going to be okay, you can focus on school, we can pay rent. We can breathe, for the first time in 3 years, we can actually breathe." Diana started crying, and Marcus felt his own tears finally spill over. They cried together over the phone, releasing years of stress and fear and struggle, letting themselves believe that maybe, just maybe, something good could actually happen to people like them. When Marcus finally composed himself enough to speak again, he said, "I need to go back in and officially quit. I'll be home soon, we'll talk about everything then." "Okay," Diana said, her voice still thick with tears. "Marcus. Yeah, I'm so proud of you. So proud." Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion. "Love you, sis, love you too." Marcus walked back into the diner to find Patricia and the entire staff waiting. They'd clearly heard some version of what happened, and Patricia looked like she might cry. "I need to give my 2 weeks' notice," Marcus said. Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "Nonsense, you've worked here for 3 years without a single day off, you've covered every shift I ever asked you to. You've been the most reliable employee I've ever had. Consider those 2 weeks waived with full recommendation. You go build your new life, Marcus. You've earned it." The other staff members crowded around, hugging him, congratulating him, expressing genuine happiness for his good fortune. Jennifer was openly crying. Even some of the regular customers, who'd overheard, were smiling and wishing him well. As Marcus left the diner for the last time as an employee, carrying his few personal belongings from his locker, he paused at the door and looked back. 3 years of his life had been spent in this place, serving coffee and taking orders and being invisible to most of the world, but not anymore. He stepped out into the Houston heat, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel oppressive. It felt like possibility. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation, and barely contained excitement mixed with terror. Marcus gave his official notice at the diner, though Patricia had already made it clear he was free to leave immediately. The staff threw him a small party on his last day, and several regular customers stopped by to wish him well. Elizabeth, Rebecca's assistant, called Marcus 3 times during those 2 weeks, walking him through paperwork with patience and professionalism. She never once made him feel stupid for his questions, explaining everything clearly. "The starting salary is $65,000 per year, Elizabeth said, matter-of-factly during their first call. Marcus had to ask her to repeat it. 65,000. More than 3 times what he made at the diner. For one person, doing one job, with normal hours. Is that okay?" Marcus asked hesitantly, still not quite believing it was real. Elizabeth laughed kindly. "Marcus, that's the starting salary for a junior associate in our industry. It's completely standard. You'll also have full benefits, health, dental and vision insurance, paid time off, and you'll be eligible for performance bonuses. Miss Whitmore has very high hopes for you." That night, Marcus and Diana sat at their kitchen table actually calculating a budget where the numbers worked. Not just barely worked, but actually had money left over. We could save money, Diana said, her voice full of wonder. Actually save, build an emergency fund. Maybe even move to a better apartment eventually. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Marcus cautioned, but he was smiling. Let me make sure I don't get fired in the first month. You won't, Diana said firmly. Rebecca wouldn't have hired you if she didn't believe in you completely. You're going to be amazing at this, Marcus. I know it. Marcus wanted to believe her desperately. But as his start date approached, the anxiety grew stronger than the excitement. What if he couldn't do this? What if he'd been fooling himself? What if Rebecca realized she'd made a terrible mistake? On July 14th, his last night as a diner employee, Marcus barely slept. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with fears and possibilities in equal measure. July 15th arrived hot and humid, a typical Houston summer day. Marcus dressed carefully in new clothes he and Diana had scraped together money to buy. A proper button-down shirt, decent slacks, actual dress shoes that didn't have holes. Looking in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. You look good, Diana said, straightening his collar with sisterly precision. Professional, like you belong there. I feel like I'm playing dress-up, Marcus admitted, his voice shaky. Fake it till you make it, Diana advised. That's what everyone says, right? Besides, you're not faking anything important. You're a good person with a strong work ethic, that's real. The business knowledge will come. The bus ride downtown felt different this time, charged with possibility and terror. Marcus wasn't heading to serve coffee. He was heading to build a career, to learn, to grow, to become something more. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. When he arrived at the building, Rebecca was waiting in the lobby with Elizabeth. She smiled warmly when she saw him. Marcus, right on time. Punctuality is important in this business, so that's an excellent start. She looked him over approvingly. You look very professional, ready for day one. As ready as I'll ever be, Marcus said, hoping his voice sounded more confident than he felt. Perfect, come on then. Let me show you to your workspace. She led him through security, which now had his photo ID ready and waiting. They took the elevator to the 23rd floor, and Marcus tried not to let his nervousness show as his stomach did flips the entire ride up. Rebecca guided him to a cubicle near a window with a view of the city. It wasn't huge, but it had everything he needed. A desk, a computer, a phone, filing cabinets, and a nameplate that read Marcus Thompson Jr. Associate. Marcus stared at the nameplate, his throat suddenly tight with emotion. His name professionally printed, on a real desk in a real company. He belonged here. The nameplate said so. This is yours, Rebecca said warmly. Your space, your place in this company. Now I'm going to pair you with Sarah Mitchell, one of our senior associates. She'll be your mentor, show you the ropes, help you get oriented. Don't worry about knowing everything right away, Marcus, just focus on learning, asking questions, and being yourself. That authenticity is what got you here in the first place. A white woman in her early 40s approached with a friendly smile. She had warm brown eyes and an easy, approachable manner that immediately put Marcus slightly more at ease. You must be Marcus, she said, extending her hand. I'm Sarah Mitchell. Rebecca's told me so much about you. I'm really excited to work with you. Ready for your first day? As ready as I'll ever be, Marcus repeated, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm and confident without being aggressive. Sarah laughed warmly. Perfect attitude. Come on, let's start with the basics. Coffee first, because that's essential, then we'll dive into the actual work. The first day was overwhelming in ways Marcus hadn't fully anticipated. Not because people were unkind, everyone was professional and welcoming. But the sheer volume of information was staggering, like trying to drink from a fire hose. Sarah was patient and thorough, walking Marcus through their computer systems step by step, explaining the various types of projects they worked on, introducing him to team members throughout the day. They did commercial real estate development and venture capital investments in startups, particularly those focused on community development and social impact. Terms like cap rate, internal rate of return, due diligence, market analysis, equity stake, and exit strategy flew at him constantly. Marcus took notes furiously, his hand cramping from writing so much. He nodded and asked clarifying questions,
but inside he felt like he was drowning in unfamiliar concepts. At lunch, Sarah took him to the building's cafeteria, a nice space with various food options, nothing like the diner. "How are you holding up?" she asked, as they sat down with their meals. "Overwhelmed," Marcus admitted honestly. "This is so different from anything I've ever done. There's so much I don't know." Sarah nodded sympathetically. "That's completely normal and expected. Can I be straight with you about something? Please," Marcus said, bracing himself. "Rebecca doesn't usually hire people without extensive business backgrounds," Sarah said carefully. "When she told us she was bringing in someone from outside the industry, someone without a degree, there was definitely skepticism among some people. Some questioned whether it was wise, whether it was fair to you to put you in this situation." Marcus felt his stomach sink. "I know I don't have the credentials everyone else has." "Let me finish," Sarah said gently. "Here's what I told people. If Rebecca Whitmore sees something in you, there's a reason. She's been doing this successfully for 30 years, she doesn't make hiring mistakes, and in just the few hours I've spent with you this morning, I can already see what she saw. You ask thoughtful questions. You're not afraid to admit when you don't understand something, which is actually rare. You're humble but engaged. You're taking notes on everything. Those qualities matter more than you might think." She leaned forward slightly. "But I'm going to be honest with you about something else. You're going to have to work harder than everyone else here to prove yourself. Some people are going to doubt you until you show them otherwise. It's not fair, but it's reality. The question is, are you prepared for that?" Marcus thought about his entire life, about growing up poor, about being treated as invisible, about working multiple jobs just to stay afloat. "I've been working twice as hard, my whole life just to get half as far," he said quietly. "I'm used to having to prove myself. At least here, I'm getting paid fairly while I do it, and I'm learning skills that can actually lead somewhere."
Sarah smiled, and there was genuine respect in her expression. "Good answer. You know what, I think you're going to do just fine here, Marcus. I can feel it. You've got something that can't be taught." The afternoon was spent in meetings, Marcus mostly observed, taking notes frantically and trying to follow discussions about properties and investments and market trends. He felt lost more often than not, but he paid careful attention to everything, absorbing what he could, making notes about terms to look up later. By the end of the day, Marcus was mentally exhausted in a way he'd never experienced from physical work. His body felt fine, but his brain felt completely fried, overwhelmed with new information, new concepts, new ways of thinking. Rebecca stopped by his cubicle as he was getting ready to leave, her expression warm. "How was day one?" "Overwhelming," Marcus said honestly. "But good, I think there's so much to learn, so much." "That's completely normal," Rebecca assured him. "Give yourself time, Marcus. You're not supposed to understand everything on day one. That would be impossible. Sarah told me you asked good questions and stayed engaged even when things got technical. That's exactly what I want to see. Curiosity and engagement matter more than immediate comprehension." "Thank you for this opportunity," Marcus said, the words feeling inadequate for the magnitude of what Rebecca had given him. "I'm going to work so hard. I promise you won't regret taking a chance on me." "I already know I won't," Rebecca said warmly. "See you tomorrow." And Marcus breathed. "You're doing fine. Better than fine, actually." On the bus ride home, Marcus felt that strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. He'd survived his first day. He hadn't made any major mistakes. Maybe, just maybe, he could actually do this. When he got home, Diana was waiting eagerly at the door. "Tell me everything." Marcus collapsed on their worn couch and recounted the entire day. The office, the people, Sarah, the meetings, how much he didn't know, how overwhelming it all felt. "But you made it through," Diana pointed out. "You showed up, you tried, you didn't give up or run away. That's huge, Marcus, that's everything." "Day one down," Marcus said, managing a tired smile. "Only about 1,000,000 more to go." "One day at a time," Diana said, sitting beside him and taking his hand. "That's all any of us can do. One day at a time." The following weeks settled into a pattern that was both challenging and rewarding. Marcus would wake up early, though mercifully not at 4:45 anymore, dress in his professional clothes that still felt slightly foreign, and take the bus downtown. Each day brought new challenges, new things to learn, new moments where he felt completely out of his depth, but slowly, incrementally, things started to make sense. The jargon became familiar, The processes started to feel natural. The overwhelming flood of information began to organize itself into understandable patterns and systems. Sarah was patient and thorough, never making Marcus feel stupid for his questions. She taught him not just about the work itself but about office culture, how to write professional emails, how to present himself in meetings, when to speak up and when to listen and absorb. "You're picking this up faster than I expected," Sarah told him after his third week. "You have good instincts, Marcus. Learn to trust them." Marcus spent his evenings at home with Diana studying business terms, reading articles about real estate and venture capital, watching YouTube videos about business concepts, trying to catch up on years of knowledge he'd never had access to. He was exhausted constantly, but it was a different kind of exhaustion than the diner. This felt like building something, like moving towards something meaningful, instead of just treading water. "You're working yourself too hard," Diana said one night around 11:30, finding Marcus still awake, reading on his laptop at the kitchen table. "I have to," Marcus replied, rubbing his tired eyes. "Everyone else here has degrees, years of experience, networks and connections. I'm starting from zero. If I don't work 3 times as hard, I'll never catch up. I can't let Rebecca down. I can't let you down." "But you're not zero, Marcus," Diana insisted, sitting down next to him. "Rebecca didn't hire you because of what you knew. She hired you because of who you are. Don't forget that. Your character, your perspective, your values, those are your strengths. You can't study those in a book." Marcus wanted to believe her, but every day he felt the weight of his inexperience. He saw the occasional skeptical look from colleagues, heard the unspoken questions about whether he really belonged there, felt like he had to prove himself over and over again. Most people were kind and professional, but Marcus could sense the doubt underneath in some of them. Could this guy from the diner really cut it in the business world? Was Rebecca making a mistake? Was this charity or a genuine business decision? He was determined to prove he could not just survive, but thrive. By the end of his first month, Marcus received his first paycheck. When he saw the amount, after taxes, he actually had to sit down. It was more money than he'd ever seen at once in his entire life, more than he'd made in 3 months at the diner. That evening he and Diana went to the bank together. They paid their rent in full, with enough left over that they weren't immediately worried about next month. They bought groceries, real groceries, not just ramen and whatever was cheapest. They even splurged on a small celebration dinner at a casual restaurant. "We did it," Diana said, tears in her eyes as they ate. "We're actually going to be okay." "We are," Marcus agreed, his own voice thick with emotion. "For the first time in 3 years we're actually going to be okay." That night, lying in bed, Marcus thought about how much had changed in just 1 month, from serving coffee and worrying about eviction to working in a professional office with a real salary and benefits. It still felt surreal sometimes, like a dream he might wake up from, but it was real. The paycheck was real, the work was real, the opportunity was real, and Marcus was determined to make the most of it. As Marcus entered his second month at Whitmore Ventures, he was starting to feel slightly less overwhelmed, though there was still so much he didn't know. The daily routine was becoming familiar. The jargon was becoming clearer. He was beginning to understand how the different pieces of the business fit together. Rebecca checked in with him regularly, always encouraging. "You're doing well, Marcus, better than you probably think. Sarah's very impressed with your progress." In late August, as Marcus approached the end of his second month, Rebecca called him into her office. He went with the usual flutter of nervous anticipation, though these meetings were becoming less terrifying and more just part of his routine. "Marcus, sit down," Rebecca said warmly. "I want to talk to you about something exciting." Marcus sat, trying to calm his racing heart. "You've been here almost 2 months now," Rebecca continued. "Sarah tells me you're doing excellent work. You're learning quickly, asking smart questions, contributing thoughtfully to discussions. Your work ethic is exemplary. I'm impressed with your progress." "Marcus, thank you," Marcus said. "I'm trying my best to absorb everything I can." "I know you are," Rebecca said, "which is why I think you're ready for something more substantial. I want to give you a project to manage, something real, something that matters." Marcus felt his stomach flip with anxiety and excitement. "Manage a whole project?" "Yes," Rebecca said, her eyes warm with confidence in him. "It's a community center renovation in 3rd Ward actually, not far from where you grew up. The building needs updates, the facilities need modernizing. It's not a huge project by our standards, but it's important to the community it serves. I want you to manage the logistics, work with contractors, coordinate with city officials, and make sure everything stays on budget and schedule. Marcus felt a rush of conflicting emotions, excitement, terror, and something deeper, a sense of coming full circle. That's my neighborhood. I know that community center. My mom used to take me and Diana there when we were kids. We used their after-school programs. Rebecca smiled knowingly. I know. That's exactly why I'm giving this to you, Marcus. You understand what this project means, beyond just the numbers on a spreadsheet. You know what these spaces represent to the families who use them. I want someone working on this who actually cares about the outcome beyond the profit margin, someone who understands the real-world impact. Marcus took the thick project folder from Rebecca's desk with trembling hands. I won't let you down, I promise. I know you won't, Rebecca said confidently. Sarah will be available to support you and review your work, but this is your project, Marcus. Your decisions, your responsibility, your chance to show what you can do. I believe in you. That night, Marcus spread the project files across the kitchen table while Diana studied nearby for her own classes. Budget spreadsheets, contractor bids, renovation plans, timeline proposals, city permit requirements. It was overwhelming at first, dozens of documents, hundreds of details to track and coordinate. But as Marcus read through everything carefully, multiple times, patterns started to emerge. He began to see how all the pieces fit together, how the budget connected to the timeline, how the contractor bids related to the scope of work, how it all formed a coherent whole. You're getting that focused look again, Diana observed, glancing up from her textbook. What look? Marcus asked, not taking his eyes off his notes. The focused look. The I'm figuring this out, and I'm going to make this work look. I like seeing that look. It's confidence. Marcus paused, considering. This is my neighborhood, Diana. This is the community center where Mama used to take us every day after school. Remember the art classes, the homework help, the summer programs? Diana's eyes softened with memory. I remember. You used to help Mama set up for the activities. You were always helping. If I can make this work, if I can help renovate this place properly, it'll mean something real. It'll actually help people. Kids who are growing up like we did. That matters. That really matters. Then you'll do it right, Diana said with complete confidence. Because you care. That's your superpower, Marcus. You actually give a damn about people. Over the following weeks of September, Marcus threw himself into the project with everything he had. He met with contractors, many of whom were initially skeptical of someone so young and obviously inexperienced managing a significant construction project. But Marcus's genuine care for the community, his meticulous attention to detail, and his willingness to listen and learn gradually won them over. One contractor, a middle-aged Hispanic man named Carlos Martinez, was particularly helpful. You actually care about this neighborhood, Carlos observed, during one of their meetings. Most project managers from downtown firms, they just want to check boxes and stay on budget. But you're asking about the people who use this place. That's different. That's good. Marcus visited the community center multiple times, talking to the staff, the program directors, the families who actually used the space daily. He asked them what they needed, what would make the biggest difference in their lives. He incorporated their feedback into the renovation plans in ways the original proposal hadn't even considered. The computer lab needed updated equipment so kids could do homework and learn digital skills. The playground needed safety improvements and equipment that worked. The bathrooms needed to be fully accessible for people with disabilities. The heating and cooling system was failing and needed complete replacement. The roof was leaking. The kitchen where they prepared meals for programs needed modernization to meet current health codes. Marcus documented everything, adjusted the budget carefully, found efficiencies in some areas to fund improvements in others. He learned to negotiate with contractors, to read construction specifications, to understand building codes and permit requirements. Sarah supervised his work, reviewing his progress reports and budget analyses, offering guidance and asking probing questions that made Marcus think more deeply. But she was increasingly stepping back and letting Marcus make decisions independently. You're doing really well with this, she told him, in early October after reviewing his latest comprehensive report. Your approach is different from what we typically see from new associates. More community-focused, more human-centered.
You're not just looking at this as a project to complete on time and budget. You're thinking about the actual impact on real people's lives. Rebecca is going to love this approach. Marcus worked late many nights, coming home exhausted but energized in a way the diner never made him feel. This work mattered. This work had meaning beyond just a paycheck. In mid-October, 2.5 months into his tenure at Whitmore Ventures and about 6 weeks into managing the community center project, Marcus had to present his complete proposal to Rebecca and the senior leadership team. His hands were shaking as he walked into the conference room carrying his carefully prepared materials and laptop. The senior team consisted of Rebecca plus 4 other executives, all successful business people with decades of experience each. They looked at Marcus with expressions ranging from curious to supportive to cautiously skeptical. Marcus took a deep breath, set up his presentation on the screen, and began. He walked them through the project methodically, explaining each phase of the renovation, the budget allocations by category, the timeline with built-in buffers for inevitable delays, the risk mitigation strategies. But more importantly, he talked about the impact, the why behind every decision. This community center serves over 300 families every single month. Marcus explained, his voice growing stronger as he spoke about something he truly cared about. It provides after-school programs that keep kids safe and help them with homework. It offers job training programs that help adults build careers and support their families. It has senior activities that provide community for isolated elderly residents. It's a hub for this neighborhood, a place where people can access resources and support. He clicked to the next slide showing the planned improvements. Every dollar we're spending here will ripple out into people's lives in tangible ways. The new computer lab will help kids develop digital skills they need for school and future jobs. The updated kitchen will allow them to serve more nutritious meals to families facing food insecurity. The accessible bathrooms mean elderly residents and people with disabilities can actually use this facility with dignity. The new HVAC system means programs can run year-round comfortably, not shut down when it's too hot or too cold. Marcus looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. This isn't just a building renovation. This is an investment in a community that's been overlooked and underserved for too long. This is about treating people with dignity and giving them the resources they need to thrive. That's what this project is really about. That's why it matters. When he finished, there was a moment of silence that made Marcus's stomach clench with anxiety. Had he said something wrong? Focused too much on the emotional impact instead of the business case? Failed to justify the costs properly? Then Rebecca smiled, and it was genuine and full of pride. This is exactly what I was hoping for, Marcus. You didn't just look at the numbers, though your budget work is solid and thorough. You looked at the people, at what this project actually means beyond our balance sheet. You made the business case while keeping the human impact front and center. This is the kind of thinking we need more of in this company. Well done. Really well done. James, one of the senior executives who Marcus knew had been skeptical of his hiring from the beginning, spoke up. I have to admit, I had my doubts about giving such a significant project to someone so new to the industry. But this is really solid work, Marcus. Your community engagement approach, your attention to both financial and impact metrics, your realistic timeline with appropriate contingencies. This is professional level work. You should be genuinely proud of this. Another executive, a woman named Patricia, nodded in agreement. I'm particularly impressed by how you incorporated direct input from the actual users of the facility. That level of stakeholder engagement is something our more experienced project managers sometimes forget to do. You're bringing a fresh perspective that's valuable. Marcus felt a wave of relief and pride wash over him, so intense it was almost overwhelming. He'd done it. He'd proven, at least to himself and apparently to them, that he belonged here, that he could handle real responsibility and deliver professional results. After the meeting ended, Rebecca pulled him aside in the hallway. Marcus, I want you to see this project through to completion from start to finish. You'll have full autonomy on day-to-day decisions, with Sarah available for support and guidance whenever you need it. This is your project now. Own it, manage it, make it successful. Thank you, Rebecca, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion that he tried to control. Thank you for believing in me enough to give me this opportunity, for trusting me with something this important. You're earning that trust every day, Rebecca replied warmly, placing a hand on his shoulder. Keep doing exactly what you're doing, Marcus. That evening, Marcus took Diana out to dinner at a modest but nice restaurant, a step up from fast food but nothing too extravagant. They were learning to balance their improved financial situation with the ingrained caution of people who'd been poor their whole lives. "I presented my project today," Marcus told her over their meals. "The community center renovation, the senior executives approved it. I get to manage the whole thing from start to finish." Diana's face lit up with joy and pride. "Marcus, that's incredible, that's huge." "I know," Marcus said, still processing it himself. 3 months ago I was serving coffee and worried about making rent. Now I'm managing a real construction project that's going to help hundreds of families. It's surreal. Sometimes I still can't believe this is actually my life." "It's what you deserve," Diana said firmly, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. "You've worked hard your whole life. You've always been capable of this. You just needed someone to give you the chance to show it." They talked about their futures, about possibilities that had seemed impossible just months ago. Diana was doing well in school, her grades excellent now that she wasn't constantly stressed about money. She was talking seriously about transferring to a 4-year university next year to finish her bachelor's degree. "We're actually making it," Diana said, wonder still clear in her voice. "We're actually climbing out of that hole we were stuck in." "We are," Marcus agreed. "Together, like we always said we would." As they finished their meal, Marcus felt a profound sense of gratitude mixed with determination. Rebecca had opened a door for him, yes, but he was the one walking through it, doing the work, proving himself, earning his place. And this was just the beginning. October brought slightly cooler weather to Houston, cooler being relative in Texas. Marcus was now deeply immersed in managing the community center renovation which had entered construction in late September. It was his first major project, and every challenge, permit delays, supply issues, budget revisions, became a lesson. He built strong relationships on site, especially with Carlos Martinez, the head contractor, who became both collaborator and mentor. "You're a natural at this," Carlos told him one afternoon. "You listen, you solve problems, and you care about quality. That's more important than any fancy degree." By mid-October, Rebecca began inviting Marcus to sit in on venture capital pitch meetings. "I want you to learn how we evaluate opportunities," she said. "Listen for authenticity, who's real and who's rehearsed. You have good instincts about people, let's refine them." Marcus found these sessions fascinating. Most presenters were young entrepreneurs from privileged backgrounds with polished decks and lofty projections. Some were sincere, but others seemed motivated only by prestige and profit. In one November meeting, a startup pitched an affordable meal delivery app for working families. Their meals cost $12 each. When Q&A opened, Marcus raised his hand. "Who exactly is your target customer?" "Working families who don't have time to cook," the founder replied smoothly. Marcus nodded. "For a family of 4, that's nearly $50 a meal plus delivery fees. That's not affordable for most working families. You're really targeting middle-class professionals who want to feel like they're helping lower-income households." The room fell silent. The presenter fumbled for a response. Rebecca's eyes glowed with pride. Sarah was clearly impressed. Afterward, Rebecca told him, "That was excellent. You saw through the surface. You bring a real-world perspective this room often lacks." James from the investment team added, "You probably just saved us from a bad deal." By late November, 5 months into his role, Marcus had become confident. The community center project was ahead of schedule, and colleagues treated him with genuine respect. Then disaster struck. Whitmore Ventures' largest development of the year, a multi-million-dollar mixed-use complex, was thrown into chaos when the lead contractor declared bankruptcy overnight. The entire project was suddenly at risk. Rebecca called an emergency meeting. "We have 2 weeks to replace the contractor or risk losing investors," she said firmly. "Marcus, you've built solid relationships through the community center project. Leverage them. Find us options fast." "I'm on it," Marcus said, already thinking through contacts. The next 10 days tested him more than anything before. He barely slept, fueled by coffee and urgency. He spent 16-hour days contacting contractors, comparing bids, verifying credentials, and negotiating. Diana grew worried. "Marcus, you're running yourself into the ground," she warned. "I know," he said, exhausted. "But Rebecca believed in me when no one else did. I have to give this everything I've got." By day 8, Marcus found the solution: Martinez Construction. Carlos's company had the experience, workforce, and reliability to take over. "I can do this," Carlos said. "But I need commitment within 24 hours. Marcus prepared the proposal that night, and brought it to Rebecca, who was still in her office long after sunset.
This is solid work, she said after reviewing it. Carlos has a great reputation and fair pricing. If this holds, it could save the project. Be ready to present to the board tomorrow morning. Saturday, Marcus stood before 8 board members, experienced executives who'd seen everything. Despite exhaustion, he presented clearly, explaining the crisis, the plan, and every contingency. A board member named Margaret studied him. "You know this contractor personally?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said. "We worked together on the community center. He stayed under budget and ahead of schedule. I trust him completely." "And you're staking your professional reputation on this recommendation?" "Yes, ma'am. I wouldn't bring it forward if I wasn't certain." Margaret nodded. "That's confidence and integrity. I respect that." The board voted unanimously to approve the deal. Martinez Construction was hired, and the project was saved. Afterward, Rebecca pulled Marcus aside. "What you did was extraordinary," she said. "You worked yourself nearly to exhaustion, but you delivered. That kind of dedication doesn't go unnoticed." She paused. "But you can't sustain this pace forever. Part of leadership is knowing when to rest, when to ask for help. You don't need to prove yourself anymore, you already have." Marcus nodded. "You're right, I was so focused on not letting anyone down that I forgot to take care of myself." Rebecca smiled gently. "That's the last lesson of this project, sustainability. You've earned your place here, Marcus. Don't forget that." With Martinez Construction on board, the project resumed smoothly. Carlos's team delivered exceptional work, and Marcus, now delegating more, learned the power of trust. By early December, his 6th month at Whitmore Ventures, Rebecca invited him to lunch. "I wanted to check in," she said. "How are you doing?" "Really?" Marcus smiled. "Better than I've ever been. 6 months ago, I was working at a diner, barely surviving. Now I'm managing million-dollar projects. It's surreal." Rebecca leaned forward. "You've earned this. But I also want to talk about your future." She hesitated, then continued. "I'm 68. I'm not retiring yet, but I'm thinking about succession. Who will lead this company in 10 years? Marcus, I see you as part of that future. You have everything leadership requires: integrity, empathy, creativity, and courage. You care about people, not just profit." Marcus was stunned. "Me? I've only been here 6 months. Rebecca chuckled. "I'm not naming you CEO tomorrow, but I want to invest in your long-term growth. The company will sponsor your bachelor's degree, part-time, at the University of Houston. You'll study while you work. It'll take a few years, but it'll give you the credentials to match your talent." Tears welled in Marcus's eyes. "You'd really do that?" "It's an investment in our future," Rebecca said simply. "You've earned this. Think about it, and talk to Diana." That night Marcus shared the news with his sister over dinner. She beamed. "Marcus, this is incredible. You have to say yes. You've spent your life helping me and everyone else. It's time you build your own future too." "It feels unreal," he admitted. "Like I'll wake up back at the diner." "It's real," Diana insisted. "You earned every bit of it. You just needed someone to see you." By mid-December, Marcus had officially enrolled in online classes starting January. The community center project was nearly complete, slightly ahead of schedule and under budget. Rebecca scheduled the reopening for just before Christmas and made sure Marcus would stand beside her at the ceremony. On a bright December morning, families crowded into the new facility. Children laughed in the computer lab, elders admired the accessible rooms, and the smell of fresh paint mixed with community pride. An older woman, the center's director, approached Marcus with tears in her eyes. "Are you Marcus Thompson? Miss Whitmore said you led this." "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said softly. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling. "This center serves hundreds of families. You've made life better for people who needed it most." Marcus's eyes glistened. "My mama used to bring me and my sister here when we were kids. I'm just grateful I could give something back." As Rebecca drove him back to the office, she asked, "How does it feel?" Marcus smiled, watching the city blur past. "Like everything came full circle. 6 months ago, I gave you a cup of water because it was the right thing to do. Now I'm helping change lives. It's overwhelming in the best way." Rebecca nodded. "You've come far, Marcus, but this is just the beginning. You have so much more to offer. You're going to make a lasting impact." Driving through Houston, past the neighborhoods where he'd once struggled to make rent, Marcus reflected on the past half year. He'd gone from invisible to indispensable, not because of luck, but because someone had truly seen him, then trusted him enough to rise. Rebecca had opened the door. Marcus had walked through it, working tirelessly, proving himself at every turn. He'd earned his place, not just at Whitmore Ventures, but in a world that had once overlooked him. And as they pulled into the parking garage, Marcus felt something he'd never known before: belonging, purpose, a sense that his life was no longer about survival but contribution. He looked toward the skyline and thought of his mother's words: kindness costs nothing and is worth everything. 6 months ago, a simple act, a cup of water for a stranger, had changed everything. Now Marcus was determined to do the same for others, to keep paying it forward, one chance, one person, one life at a time. He'd found his purpose, and he was just getting started. January brought cold fronts to Houston, a rare relief from the heavy summer air. Marcus had started his online classes at the University of Houston while continuing his full-time job at Whitmore Ventures. Balancing both was tough, but he was learning to pace himself, proof that he'd earned the right to take care of his own well-being. Diana was thriving too. She'd been accepted to transfer to the University of Houston that fall to finish her degree in social work. For the first time in their lives, the constant financial pressure was gone. They'd moved into a small but clean apartment in a safer neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it had working appliances, good light, and peace. Marcus would never forget the day they moved in. Diana had stood in her own bedroom and whispered through tears, "We made it." But Marcus knew his journey wasn't just about comfort, it was about using the chance Rebecca had given him to open doors for others, the way she had for him. In February, he approached Rebecca with a proposal he'd spent weeks developing. "I want to create a program," he told her, spreading papers across her desk. "Something for people with potential but without opportunities. People like me a year ago, hard-working, overlooked, but capable if someone just believed in them." Rebecca listened carefully as he described partnering with local organizations to find candidates of strong character. They'd receive 6 months of training and mentorship, then real job placements at Whitmore Ventures and partner companies. "We'd be looking for people who've been written off," Marcus said passionately. "We give them structure, support, and a chance to prove themselves. If they make it, they'll have a career. If not, they'll still walk away with experience and confidence they never had before." Rebecca smiled, deeply moved. "I love it. It's exactly what I've always wanted to do but didn't know how. Let's make it happen." She called in Sarah, who'd mentored Marcus from the start. After hearing the plan, Sarah said warmly, "This could change lives, and I think it should be called the Thompson Initiative, in honor of Marcus and his mother." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "You'd name it after me, after her." Rebecca nodded. "It's your vision, and it honors everything your mother stood for." Over the next 2 months, Marcus worked closely with HR, Rebecca and Sarah to build the program: funding, partnerships, curriculum, everything. They planned to start with 10 candidates and expand if successful. By April, the Thompson Initiative officially launched at a small ceremony. Diana attended, proud and teary-eyed as her brother spoke. "This program represents what business should truly be about," Marcus said. "Not just profit, but purpose. Not just success for a few, but opportunity for the many. Everyone deserves a chance to show what they're capable of." Applications poured in, over 150 in the first 2 weeks. Marcus personally reviewed every one, searching for that spark Rebecca had once seen in him: character, resilience, and heart. One stood out: Christina Rodriguez, 24, working 3 part-time jobs to raise her 2 younger siblings after losing her parents in an accident. No degree, little money, but glowing references and a heartfelt essay about wanting a real chance. Marcus called her in for an interview. She arrived nervous but composed, wearing her best clothes, clean, pressed, and worn. She reminded him of himself 10 months earlier, hopeful but afraid to hope too much. "Tell me why you want this," Marcus asked gently. Christina clasped her hands. "Because I'm tired of just surviving. I know I can do more, be more, if someone just lets me try. I just need someone to see me." Marcus smiled. "Christina, you're our first candidate for the Thompson Initiative. Welcome to Whitmore Ventures." Her eyes widened. "Really? This is real." "It's real," Marcus said. "Someone once did the same for me. Now it's my turn." Christina broke down in grateful tears, and Marcus let her. He knew exactly what that release felt like. Weeks later, Christina was thriving, curious, hard-working, and eager to learn. She soaked up every lesson, brought empathy and insight from her own struggles, and impressed everyone she worked with. Sarah told Marcus one afternoon, "You were right about her. She's got that same spark you had when you started: humility, drive, heart."
She's going to do great things. By June, Marcus had been at Whitmore Ventures for a year. He managed major projects, mentored new hires, and even began taking graduate-level business courses online. His work ethic and perspective had earned him real respect. Rebecca organized a company-wide celebration for his one-year anniversary. Marcus felt awkward being the focus of attention, but proud too. 1 year ago, Rebecca began, addressing the staff. I hired Marcus Thompson. Some of you were skeptical, wondering if I'd made a mistake bringing in someone with no formal background. She smiled at him. But Marcus has not only proven he belongs here, he's become one of our most valuable people. His compassion, creativity, and integrity remind us why we do what we do. His projects have improved real lives, and his creation, the Thompson Initiative, is already changing many more. Rebecca's voice softened. Marcus, your mother would be so proud. The applause that followed was long and heartfelt. Even those who'd once doubted him smiled now. Christina, standing near the back, was beaming through tears. Later, in Rebecca's office, she showed Marcus a report on her computer. This is your impact, Marcus. Charts and numbers filled the screen. Families served at the community center, affordable housing units built, new jobs created through investments he'd helped approve. These aren't just statistics, Rebecca said. They're lives you've touched. You've proved what happens when someone with good values gets a real chance. Marcus was speechless. I never realized it all added up to this. You should, Rebecca said gently. This is just the beginning. Imagine what you'll accomplish over decades. That evening, Marcus met Diana for dinner at their favorite restaurant, the same place they'd celebrated his first big success a year before. 1 year ago, everything changed, Diana said, raising her glass. You gave someone water, and it opened a door you didn't even know existed. I'm so proud of you. We did this together, Marcus said, and I've been thinking. After you graduate, I want you to work with me at Whitmore Ventures. Maybe with the initiative, we could build this side by side. Her eyes filled with tears. Really? You'd want me there? Of course, you've lived this journey too. You understand what it means. They clinked glasses, smiling through emotion. As they ate, Marcus reflected on how far he'd come, from invisible diner worker to respected leader. All because of one moment of kindness. Rebecca had seen potential in him when no one else had. But he'd done the work, step by step, day by day. Now he was doing for others what she'd done for him. Christina was only the beginning. Marcus wanted hundreds more to get the same chance to prove that talent and heart mattered more than connections or degrees. That night, back in their apartment, Marcus stood by the window watching the Houston skyline glitter against the dark. Somewhere out there, someone was still struggling, like he once had, tired, unseen, desperate for a chance. He made a silent promise to his mother, to Rebecca, to Christina, to everyone who would come after. He would keep working, keep learning, keep seeing people, really seeing them, the way Rebecca had seen him, because sometimes, one person believing in you is all it takes to change everything. Marcus had walked through that open door, and now he would spend his life holding it open for others. The sun would rise over Houston again tomorrow. The heat would return, but it didn't feel oppressive anymore. To Marcus Thompson, it felt like home. It felt like possibility. It felt like the beginning of something far bigger than he could imagine. One cup of water at a time, one act of kindness at a time, one life at a time. He would help change the world, just like Rebecca had changed his.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.